Thank you very much. Online dating. This is not about to tell you all how to online date, but I hope that it will be some help in setting a context for you when you hear about online dating, when you read good and bad things about online dating. So let's go. Next slide, please. Can online dating make Christian marriage possible? What you need to know. Now, I'm going to ask you very quickly, who here, put up your hand if you're pretty suspicious, pretty negative about online dating as an idea? Admit it, go on. Okay, got 2 or 3 here, come on. Who feels very positive about it as an idea? Okay, this is encouraging, thank you. Who's sort of absolutely not sure? Okay, so we've got a good range. So I'm just going to, next slide is what words come to mind, and it's a real mix of the good. The red is all the bad stuff that people say, and for some people it's just a dream. It's perfect, it's wonderful, it's saved their lives. And of course, it can be all of those things at different times. I think I have to say some of the most negative words have often come from Christian leaders, which is changing, thank goodness. But I think a lot of people have been affected, get very, very much affected by what their leaders say. And people have not done it or done it because they've been told to do it or not. The opposite extreme is when church leaders say, well, we don't have to do anything about dating courses or relationships because you can just go and join an online dating site and then that's fine. So, of course, it's just a tool, as people have said. Next slide, please. So let's take some facts. These figures are changing all the time. But at the moment, something like 27% of new relationships begin online in the UK. And that figure is growing all the time. The size of the UK market, that's just a financial figure, is about 225 million. Nobody really knows. 15% of all adults have used online dating. Now, if you drill that down to single people, David can help me out here, but I would say it's probably 45% of single people have probably used online dating. That might be wrong. And over 50% of people now access most dating sites via their mobile phones. And that's been a huge change just in the last 2 or 3 years. Now, of course, as Will was mentioning, it's increasing among the... we never really see 16 to 24-year-olds on Christian Connection, but they are going on to apps at a very fast rate. That has a whole load of issues. And also we're seeing far more people over 55 actually going into online dating as well. So it used to be really the sort of 28 to 45, but it's now spreading and it's huge. So next slide, please. I really like this slide. I can't see it from here. Can you see it? Can you read what it says? There is a sort of turquoise line at the bottom. This is how US couples met their romantic partners from 1940 to, I think it's 2010. Now, the very interesting turquoise line is in church. And that's America, where they're supposed to be more religious than we are. And that's gone down. So it's not... We'd like to think, wouldn't we, that people do meet each other in church. I'm sure they do. But it is not significant. So we have to look at the other options. Obviously, online dating, we're not quite sure about what happened in 1985, but online dating, because there wasn't any online dating, but it's gone up hugely. And then there are all the other ways. Meeting through friends is still a very big one. But online dating is gradually becoming the most common way that people actually meet. So, next slide, please. A little bit about Christian Connection. On any day, there are about 32,000 active profiles. That means people are actively engaging with the site. And there are about 23,000 visible profiles that you can see, and 11,000 logins every single day. That's just for the UK. We have other sites as well. Each month, 3,000 new joiners, and something we call interactions, which can be anything from a wave or a message or listing somebody as a favorite. 1.8 million interactions and an average of 350,000 visitors each month. So whatever your views on it, it's there, and it's very likely that a single Christian near you is going to be on an online dating site. So, what do we need to know? Oh, sorry, this is just another quick slide which just shows you the growth. And that's really only in the last, I think, since 2011. But of course, the growth has been much steeper over the 15 years that we've been running Christian Connection. Next slide, please. So what are people hoping and fearing about online dating? I think what really encourages people is hearing the personal success stories, the belief that online dating can be part of God's plan and purpose for your life. But the fear is that it isn't. And sometimes people are told, have been told in the past, you shouldn't do online dating because somehow you're messing up with God's plan. I'm not going to debate theology of that, but I can say that it's very important that people do think about these things and that people are reassured or these things are discussed properly rather than dismissed. And then, of course, there is the fear of meeting strange people online. I don't know how many of you heard the story last week with Match.com, a very unusual story. But we'll talk about some of the issues about safety in a minute. Next slide, please. But let's go back to the benefits. As I've said, church, very few opportunities, as I think we've been saying for quite a while today. Your statistical chance of finding a Christian in your gym, on holiday, at work, study, is getting less and less. So, and of course, a lot of single Christians, as we've said, don't go to church because they don't feel particularly part of it. So the online offers you an opportunity to find all those Christians in your area, to find the Christians that don't go to your church, to find the Christians that you might have nearly met, but you didn't. There's obviously a huge variety of traditions. We foster a climate of respect, so whatever tradition you come from, as long as it's sort of fundamentally Trinitarian, that's okay. And we try to offer a support and a community for people. And the community is a variety of forums, but also we run a lot of events as well. And I'm afraid, yes, we do speed dating with all that entails. And the great thing about Christian Connection is hopefully everyone, 99 point whatever, are single Christians looking for a partner. So that's a huge point in its favour. Next slide, please. Now, I did promise Annabelle this would not be a sell just for Christian Connection. Other brands are available. So there's us, there's Christian Connection. We are UK-based. Christian Mingle is a very large site which is US-based. Faith Dating is sort of based in both the UK and the US. Christian Cafe is based in Canada. And then there are some other sites, like eHarmony and Match, that are not Christian sites, but they do offer some kind of it is possible to find Christian partners through them, and a lot of people do. Now, just wait. I just want to ask you something. Yes, you can go back to it, Joff. Yes. Go back to the picture. Is this a Christian site? Who says that this is a Christian site? Who says it's not a Christian site? How would you know? Well, it's very difficult. And the next one. Is that a Christian site? You will see dozens of these sites all over the internet. If you type in Christian dating, these sites will come up all the time. They are what is called white label sites, and an awful lot of Christians join them. A white label site is a company that set up a platform, has invited hundreds, thousands of different communities onto the platform. So they could be vegetarians, Christians, lads mags, adultery sites, all kinds of things. And all the person has to do when they join the site is they might be asked, are you a Christian, atheist, Muslim, whatever? A lot of people just tick Christian because they don't know what an atheist is, and they're certainly not a Muslim. And that means that they are then put into the Christian pool, so somebody who's joined a Christian site will meet a lot of people who they then maybe realize are not actually practicing Christians. So I just put that as a warning, because a lot of people join these sites. There are all sorts of issues about them, which I won't go into in detail, but they are not fundamentally run for the benefit of Christians at all. So I talked about white label. There's obviously so much out there. So what is there? There are free sites, things like Plenty of Fish. A lot of people love free. A lot of Christians like free as well. Ultimately, you have to be a little bit nervous of them, because if you're not paying in money, you're paying in something else. You might be having your profile up there. The customer moderation may not be so good. If people are not paying by credit card, you have no idea who they are. There's no way of tracing them quite frequently. So people do use them, but they come with a warning. Apps, well, I'm not going to do a whole thing on apps. I think what Will said in introduction was perfectly fair, but they are very much appealing to the young. But of course, you have this lack of investment, but they are being used. So one way to check whether a site is okay is to find out whether they're a member of the Online Dating Association. That is something that a number of dating sites, including us, formed about 2 or 3 years ago, and that has a set of standards which all members are supposed to look for, and that's things like basic moderation, safety, ensuring that there's a fair cancellation policy, because one of the things that happens is what is the cancellation policy. It may be people just find they can't cancel, or they can't get their money back. Does also look for reputation reviews, recommendations. Be very careful. I'm sure you all know about internet reviews, but they can be put there by the people actually who own the site. They can be put there by the people who are just miserable, or the competitors. So there's a whole lot of stuff around that. But if you can find out from people where they met, actual real people, it's probably worth finding out if you can. Looking at where the site is based, that may be quite telling as well. And if you can't find out where it's based, well, that's also another thing to watch out for. Next slide, please. I'm sure you would all ask me about safety issues, particularly this week. Actually, the biggest issue we have is with scammers and fraud. That is where people are posing as very attractive, often widowers with a child, whose purpose is only there to form a long-term relationship with somebody online and then milk them for lots of money. They're often based in places like West Africa and all around the world. Or they may be based here in the UK. Or they may be just sort of basic one-to-one fraudsters who are real people, but people invest in a relationship. It's often people who are feeling vulnerable. They maybe have just had a relationship breakup, and it seems amazing that somebody could pay $2,000, $5,000, $50,000, $100,000 to somebody they've never met, but it happens. It's very tragic. As far as personal safety is concerned, it all sounds obvious. Meet in public places, tell people where you are, make sure you're in safe accommodation. I've known people who have gone to stay with somebody they've never met, It sounds ridiculous, but they do. Rather than finding their own accommodation, people do travel a long way to meet people. Make sure friends know where you are, keep texting them. There's also a little bit of blackmail and video going on, which I won't go into details. And as I've said, the under 24s who are more and more using the apps, and they aren't afraid of the internet. A lot of our older members are much more careful. They're often too afraid. But actually the young are like, yeah, I'll go and meet somebody who's around the corner from me, and they don't think as hard. So that is something to be wary of. But at the same time, people need to take risks. We all need to take risks. We all cross the road, we all take taxis. And actually, sort of serious sexual assault is very rare, in fact. It may not seem like that, but it really is. Next slide, please. So how can leaders help? I really ask all leaders to be informed, aware, up to date. I know it's difficult, you've got other things to do. And be sympathetic and positive. The number of people who've been seriously upset by what leaders have said that they should and shouldn't do has really hurt people in the past. So it's important that people are positive about dating, avoid negativity, and accept that, people aren't going to meet in church, much as you'd love them to. And there are differences between young and old. Now, sometimes I say to people, do not go online dating. People who are vulnerable, in a vulnerable place, people who've just had a big breakup, people who've just literally come out of a marriage, want to go into another relationship. Those are people I would say, just hang in there. And we do see it, people just crashing straight in. And those people are more likely to either exploit or get exploited. At the back of the room, we've got some wonderful online dating guides, which David, who spoke to you earlier, has written, where it's not just sort of good advice, it's actually based on the research of the technology of what works. I haven't gone into that today, but online dating is a lot of work. It's hard work. It's like anything. And people need to understand that just plonking yourself online and wait for people to contact you is not going to work. I'm not going to go into any of that, but the guide is excellent in taking you through it. So I'm now going to go for the happy stuff, having given you the hard stuff. Now, Joff, my colleague who's up there, and I had a bit of an argument a few months ago, because Joff's idea was to find a whole bunch of couples who'd met online and ask them if they wouldn't mind being in tube ad. We've all heard about the stigma of online dating, and I said, Joff, these people are never going to agree to be on a tube ad. It's just not going to happen. And Joff said, well, we'll try. And all these people, without much difficulty, said yes. So there they were. That's from our tube ad. You can read these people's stories around this hall and near lunch. But the really wonderful things that people have said, and the way that people have seen that God was part of this relationship that they built up. Online is just a tool, but it really does happen. It's sometimes difficult to really believe that children and wonderful marriages come about through online dating. And I've met a few people in this room who said, yes, there are people in our churches who've met. And I've met some of these people. And I just wanted to quote what somebody called Charlie Lester said. Charlie is the convener of the Online Dating Awards. And she's one of these people who writes for The Guardian, is an expert on relationships. And we went in for an award called Data's Favourite Site. And that meant having to bombard Charlie with all sorts of success stories. And so all the different sites did this. And Charlie was just overwhelmed by stories from Christian Connection, more than from The Guardian, more than from eHarmony. Because the great thing about Christian online daters is they make their voices heard. They are excited about what's happened. So I do hope that this is a snapshot guide which will help you to understand a little bit more about what we do, how we do it, and how it's affecting people's lives. Thank you.